Good morning, everyone. My name is Anne Livingston, and I'm the chair of the Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative. And I'll be your moderator for today's webinar, which is focused on the Connect Dementia Research Australia project. In our webinar today is facilitated for the Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative. If you've joined us in previous webinars, you will know that these are designed from feedback and requests we receive through the collaborative. Our focus of these webinars is to bring together local, national and international perspectives in research and development, as well as the deployment of smart assistive technology in the community care sector. We've been using our extensive international linkages to bring this project and the collaborative together. Just a reminder, if you haven't formally registered at the collaborative site, it's accessible to all and free to register. Please note in the recording of the webinars and in the operation of these webinars that neither Community Resourcing or the Department of Communities, Disability Services and Seniors are promoting or endorsing any particular product, research entity or organisation. Rather, the purpose of our webinars is to serve and to inform viewers of various smart assistive technologies related projects currently operating here and internationally. We welcome any questions as well in this webinar, but I'll let you know as the audience that your microphones have been muted. This is in the interests of recording, and your questions can be entered into the question pane on the right-hand dashboard on your screen. There will be an opportunity for some of your questions to be answered at the end of the session, but at previous sessions we've been inundated with questions. So the earlier you post your question, the more questions we can respond to. I'd like to thank everyone who's forwarded us questions in advance of today's presentation, and we look forward to our presenter answering those. For those who have not used the GoToMeeting platform before, your control panel will be on the right of the screen. To change the placement of the control panel, drag the top of the panel and click the box button on the top right-hand side of the panel or the arrows. To ask a question or to contribute to the chat, click chat and type your question in there. It's my great pleasure in this morning's webinar to welcome Professor Yun-Hee Jeon, who will introduce the Connect Dementia Research Australia project. This is a really exciting project that will focus on the early implementation of an Australia-wide public engagement and dementia research participation platform. Professor Jeon is the Principal Investigator and Program Director for Step Up and the Susan and Isaac Wakehill Professor of Healthy Ageing at the University of Sydney. The professor is internationally recognised as a leader in aged care and dementia research. She is very passionate about improving the care and quality of life of older people, and particularly those living with dementia and their families. Her research is working in partnership with those who have been affected by dementia and care providers, policymakers and industry partners. It's my real pleasure to introduce you to today's webinar, Professor Jeon. Let me hand over the webinar to you. Welcome.
Thank you, Anne. So it's my great pleasure to be able to share our project, Connect Dementia Research Australia. And I'd like to go through some broad overview of how we started the project and why we are doing this project and what's been done so far and what we are planning to do. So Connect Dementia Research Australia is an international collaboration project, and we are working with researchers from University College London, Professor Martin Rosser, Adam Smith, and University of Exeter Associate Professor Piers Cotting. So before I talk about the actual project itself, I want to share a video that a short YouTube clip that we had created last year before we actually commenced the project. IHOP aims to improve individuals' functional capacity, especially for those people living with dementia at home. We do this through interdisciplinary teamwork involving occupational therapists, registered nurses, and other allied health professionals who closely work with people living with dementia. In a recent study in Scotland, they surveyed about 500 people living with dementia, and they found 2 out of 3 people with dementia have lost their friends after being diagnosed. It's a significant social issue, but also as a researcher, we face a major challenge in recruiting research participants. The UK government is currently undertaking a major initiative to tackle this issue. It's called Joint Dementia Research.
Joint Dementia Research is a postal, online and telephone service that's been set up by the main dementia charities and the government in the UK. And it just allows people to register their interest in research and be matched to studies. It's like an internet dating site, eHarmony, but for research. It's been going for about 2 years. We've had 28,000 people register already. And I guess most excitingly, more than a quarter of them are already taking part in at least one study. It's captured the imagination of so many people. So the program's promoted across the country by a whole range of things. People doing cake sales, memory walks, charity runs, social media. You know, there's a huge groundswell of support from it from right across the country. And we've got more than 700 researchers using it for over 150 different types of studies. And I think it's really important actually that it has all of that breadth of research going on in it, because what it does is it empowers people to have choice about what types of research they get involved in.
So that was a short video, illustrating the background to our Step Up for Dementia research. So I came across this joint dementia research when I was at Alzheimer's Disease International Conference in Kyoto last year. So the video was made last year. It's been over a year. So the statistics that Piers described have changed. So I showed that to you, the latest information. So when I heard about joint dementia research, and I was fascinated by, the way they've gone about the problems with recruitment, and also, people in the community who, don't know anything about how they could participate in any form of research. So, while we are doing this work, as you have heard that, there is limited support available to facilitate a broader public engagement in dementia research. And many people with dementia and their carers want to get involved in dementia research, but there's no systematic way for people with dementia and others to volunteer for studies. So sometimes, doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals may recommend, we have this research, would you be interested? Or sometimes people, read about, newspaper, local paper advertisement about some research. But nevertheless, there is not a cohesive way for people to join dementia research. And from the researcher's perspective, this is a huge issue. And I mentioned briefly about IHOP study, interdisciplinary home-based rehabilitation program, we're now doing a major trial of IHAP, but a few years back when we were doing a pilot, it took me 6 months to get 2 participants from the community. And that's just one example of it. A lot of studies never finished because they couldn't actually recruit enough number of research participants. And also what that means is that you require funding extension, or sometimes, you actually have insufficient sample size that doesn't provide enough information or evidence to argue your, hypothesis. So there are a lot of issues around, and people don't necessarily understand how much it actually costs. And when drug trials are happening, big pharmaceutical companies recruit participants to find a cure for dementia, for example. And what we know is that it costs about 10 to 20,000 US dollars to recruit one subject for a drug trial. So you can imagine the enormity of the cost associated with recruitment. And that's why we really want to address this issue by introducing this Australian version of joint dementia research. And this is really about research participation and public engagement program. So I just show you a couple of slides how this has worked in the UK. And it's been now 3 years, and they had exactly the same problem. The UK government, when David Cameron was the Prime Minister, they really started to put massive amount of money to improve dementia research in the UK. But they struggled to recruit research participants. And therefore, one of the things that the idea came from consumers in the UK. And they told researchers, you guys actually going the wrong way about. And why do you give all the control to researchers? You should let the public to decide whether they want to be part of research or not. So they created this joint dementia research 3 years ago. And so basically they allow people to put their hand up to say, hey, I'm interested in dementia research. They go to online, or they use a helpline or poster, registration. And then they, do a lot of a range of things to motivate the public and also inform them about the whole process. And researchers with ethically approved studies, then they register for their study. So numbers today, the numbers that you see on the slides, they're actually a bit, 6 months old. What I'm hearing now is there are over 36,000 volunteers, the volunteers meaning the public who have registered to join dementia research to express their interest. And about recently, they just marked 10,000 volunteers actually participating in studies. That means not everyone who joined will end up in research, but they have actually marked 10,000 volunteers being part of research. Over 200, NHS, National Health Services, universities, and other research organizations have used the system. Or about 1,000 trained researchers using the service. And what it also is happening as a result is that, if you look at this, the graphic, before, so they did a survey about how people actually see the changes after joining dementia research. And, people are asked, before I found out about joint dementia research, I already knew how to get involved in dementia research. Over 86% said no, they did not know how to. Now they know that because of dementia research, they have increased awareness of what dementia research is happening. And also it made it easier for people to participate in dementia research. And that's what you want to see. And so how does it work? So this is not just for those people living with dementia or their families. It's about everyone. Anyone over the age of 17, they can join. So adults can join, and they can join by website, help desk. They can use postal registration. And what kind of information do we collect? We collect information, their demographics, their age, gender, and address. We also look at ask them about whether they have dementia or not. If they have dementia, whether they have any medication, other, 3 major health problems, any disabilities, whether they have care or not. So there are about 16 mandatory questions, and then there are about 50, optional questions. So all that information is stored in our platform. And once people have registered, we call them volunteers, they can view their current research studies that are matching. So what happens is that when researchers with the dementia research, they get ethics approval, and they say they're going to recruit their participants through our Step Up. And so then they register. We have our Step Up administrators here in the office, and they will check a number of processes, and they have to be trained because they will access someone else's information. So once that information is stored, and then there is a matching algorithm behind. And that's what Piers was talking about, eHarmony. There is a matching process. So when the researchers put information about what type of participants they want for their study, and the information the volunteers put in, when they the match happens, then you get a notification as a researcher. And the volunteers also get to see the studies that have matched to their the characteristics. So it's a really an innovative way of actually connecting people together. And how does it work? You just create a website, and you can't just wait for people to come along. So we are using a lot of social media use, and we use Google search functions, and we go to clinics and hospitals and aged care services, including both residential and community, and we also tap into charitable organizations and others. And we really want to reach out to people, and by doing that, we're not just recruiting people to sign up for our Step Up. We are also aiming to improve dementia research literacy in Australia. So this is what we are trying to do, and this is how it works. So the next couple of slides, we're still finalizing our platform, so we can't show you what we have, but this is an example of it. So the volunteers, when they have signed up, and if they actually are matched to a particular study or studies, then they get to see the names of the study, and then when they click, they can see the lay summary of the study, and they can also see when the study starts and ends. And they can express interest, whether they are interested or not, and there may be some pre-screening questionnaire that may receive from researchers. So this is for the volunteers website, and this is the researchers website. So what you do is that you actually get to see individual participants, the volunteers' details, and you can actually see the kind of answers they provided, whether they have dementia or not. So, and you can see that there is a matching percentage. So depending on how individuals match to the study, it could be 100% or it could be 10%. So researchers can actually have control over who they're going to contact. So although it's the public who put their hand up, it is the researcher who actually makes the initial contact to those people. But they can't just access anybody who has registered to Step Up. It has to, those volunteers who have matched to their study, they are the only ones that they can see and contact. And at this point, volunteers, they are not saying they are going to participate in study. So when researchers contact volunteers, they have to go through the whole process of, inform the consent process. And then at that point, the volunteer can decide whether they want to participate in research or not. So we, have been very fortunate to get funding from the Commonwealth Department of Health. And we started working on, the whole process sometime March, April this year. And we've got our project team established. We've got a communication officer and research officers. They're going to, assist the process of, working with researchers. We also have helplines, and I'll explain helpline process a bit later. So this is our team, and the actual platform is being developed by the team in the UK. It's not any type of software program. It does require a huge amount of, how this platform works, to the best effect. So, the know-how that they have gained, the UK team, is just amazing. So they have done this for 3 years, and this is continuing. And the UK project is still, funded by the Department of Health in the UK. And so they are very generously sharing their, knowledge and experiences, and they are developing this software program. But the data that we are collecting, they owned by us and owned by, stored in Australia, cloud store. So we have established our governance structure. So the one on the left is initial governance structure, and we'll have ongoing governance structure. So we are working very closely with our governance group, consisting of, our legal representatives from the university, also ICT group, because this involves using software, and we have to be really, certain about data security and data processing issues. And we have communication groups, that allow, help us to actually make strategic decisions about how we can actually, engage the public and how we send our messages to the public. And the one on the bottom is the research involvement panel and public involvement panel. So these are the ones who are going to use our system. We have, people who have expressed interest in providing us with their feedback on the whole process. So this process is, we started early this year, but the funding ends by the end of July next year. But the intention is to go on. So we have initial kind of places to launch this, which is New South Wales and WA. So the New South Wales and WA have been chosen because we want to make sure that before we roll out this nationally, that everything is actually working in the way that we have designed. And when, as I said, we have helpline staff here in our national office, and we also, work with Alzheimer's WA. And when calls come from WA, our call number 1-800-STEP 123 number will be directed to Alzheimer's WA helpline, and they're going to assist the process. So we are, gradually building our partnership with other organizations, and it's still very early stage, but we have been receiving a lot of positive responses from other organizations, and we're continuing our partnership building. Now, what I really want to say is, the name Step Up for Dementia, it's taken us about 2 months to come up with this name, and we've engaged the branding company to work with us. And the name had to be something call to action, and it had to represent something that, really we stand for. We want to empower the public. We also empower both public and the researchers, but this has something to do with the time. We don't want to delay unnecessary recruitment process, but we also are valuing individuals' contribution to the this project by giving up their time, donating their time, and we want to make sure this brings everyone together when it comes to dementia research. So there's a huge element about connecting people and organizations together, and ultimately we want to better our services and better our dementia research so that we can actually tackle this issue of dementia epidemic around the globe. So this is what we represent, and this is just a very early version of our website, and it's still working in progress. And we're planning to launch our volunteer side of the phase the end of August or early September. It depends on some of the agreements that go through the ICT department. So this is what we look like, and what we also want to make sure to do is that we are not isolated as a one initiative. This is actually linked with so many national dementia initiatives, And, as you may have heard, $200 million have been allocated for dementia research. And, a lot of dementia researchers, will benefit from us, when they use our service. We also want to make sure that this is going to complement a new National Dementia Registry you may have heard about. It's called the ADNET. And this is going to be the National Dementia Registry for highly characterized volunteers. So what we try to achieve in terms of improving dementia research, we have the same goal. But how we go about Step Up and ADNET, they're two different. But what we are trying to do is we are working together to make sure that we fill the gaps that each of the program has. And we also want to make sure that, there are other national dementia, initiatives. There is a MOOC program offered by Viking Dementia Research and Education Center. We also know about the Dementia Training Australia, Cognitive Decline Partnership Center, and also Dementia Collaborative Center for Research. So all these national dementia initiatives are going to, we're working with them and we're going to help each other. So that's what we are trying to do. Additional features, we want to actually, go beyond our service as a recruitment service, because at the end of the day, we want to, public to believe this is the place to come. When it comes to dementia research, they know Step Up is where to go. And this is a place where the public can say that we want to be involved in research, not just as a research participant, but we want to be part of the research as, someone who can contribute to set priorities, research priorities, someone who can comment or provide feedback to researchers as a part of steering group members, someone who may be interested in collecting data, and as a volunteer. So there are so many different ways of contributing to research, and this is under the umbrella of citizen science. So this is a very longer term plan, but it's not completely isolated from what we are doing. And it is really important that if we want to improve dementia literacy and dementia research literacy, we need to actually go beyond just the single isolated dementia studies. And that's what we're really trying to do through our Step Up. So that's from me, and there's a website. Our website is a very simple website for the time being, but we will have a proper website for Step Up where people can register in the next few weeks. Thank you for your time, and I want to acknowledge again the project is funded by the Commonwealth Department of Health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. That was a wonderful presentation, very comprehensive. And this is a really exciting project. It's great that the Australian government is taking such an initiative. A number of questions in the room and in our question pane today. From Rob, who's a researcher, who's currently working in a number of community care programs. He just would like to make a comment to you, Professor, about how it's great that from a funding perspective that someone's looking at the big picture and what gets lost because all the dots aren't joined. And he'd just like to congratulate you on your initiative, because it's a start of joining up all those dots for researchers and for people living with dementia and their families and for the whole of society. Would you like to comment on that, Professor?
Well, thank you. And I guess that this is exactly what we are trying to do. We want to bring people together and connecting the dots, but also it's about giving people power. And then we are really hopeful that we achieve what we set out to do, but at the same time we need a lot of support from the community and researchers.
Thank you. I've got another question from a student who's been doing some work with the collaborative and is interested in some of the technology platforms or technology opportunities that you're incorporating in the platform. So Gemma asks, can you talk about aspects of social media and what platforms you've found that have worked and what you've done in investigating the best technology and platforms for this project? Thank you, Professor.
Okay, I guess the use of social media and the media in general is for promotion of our platform Step Up, and I guess the actual platform itself that we are offering is actually developed specifically for us using the backend of joint dementia research. So it's not something that anyone can just create. It's based on what's been quite successful in the UK. We are modeled on the initial the project, the platform, and we have actually been working to make sure this is well Australianized, so that it suits Australian context with Australian researchers and the volunteers. How we promote our Step Up, we're going to tap into a lot of existing programs like Dementia Australia, Alzheimer's WA, and other organizations that are trying to reach out to the community when it comes to dementia and also healthy aging overall. So we are trying to work with them, and social media is we're using Facebook and Instagram and also Twitter. So they're our basic platform that we are planning to use.
Fabulous. Thank you, Professor. We've got a question from Claire. Claire's currently working with a university in recruiting clients for a national project, and I'll mention the project where she's working with Professor Lynn Parkinson from Central Queensland University on a project that's being funded by the Dementia and Aged Care Services grant, and it's looking at supporting carers of people with dementia in new and innovative ways. This project has the task of recruiting rural and remote clients, carers of people living with dementia. And Claire asks, do you have any insights about what some of the strategies might be and how she could use your site to assist?
Yeah, that's a really important question. I mean, when it comes to dementia research, there are some population groups often ignored or missed out, often because there are budgetary issues. It costs more to include people who don't speak English. It costs more to go to rural or remote areas to recruit people. And there is no magic bullet that that's going to solve the problem. But what we are trying to do through our Step Up is to make sure that we reach out to those community, and also making sure people in rural and remote areas know about us, and they can, if they have internet access, they can, register themselves. If they don't have internet access or computer, then they can ring us by using our helpline, and our helpline staff could actually put that information for them. And we can also have postal registration, which target people, who may not have any of those access, the facilities to access the program. But nevertheless, there will require some legwork from our staff and myself, and to really, reach out to the community to let people know that we exist. But also we have to think about, some of the barriers or, public negative perception about research, and we need a lot more work around that as well. So, the value of research. Why would I spend my, half an hour to any research? And I guess, once people understand what they say through research could actually make a huge difference to someone's life, or the way the care is provided, or the way the policy is made. So I think once people understand the value of research, and I think we have a better chance to bring them on to this kind of program.
Thank you very much, Professor. I've got one final question, and it's from Natasha. Natasha's really interested about your platform, and again congratulates you on this work. She says it's a great initiative. She's missed whether you mentioned during the presentation when it will be launched and available for people to fully access.
Yeah.
Would you like to answer that question, Professor?
Yeah, so we are planning to launch the volunteer side of Step Up towards the end of August. We may have to wait until the first week of September, but this is the ballpark that we have right at this point. We are going through the final, refinement of the whole process. So that, for September and October, it will be mainly volunteers, the public who can register for their interest. We don't ask researchers to register yet because there is no one in the database. So researchers can register sometime in November, but initially we're going to help researchers to put their information. So self-registration of researchers, the studies will start sometime later in November and December. So that's when researchers themselves can put information. So as I said earlier, researchers have to be trained. It doesn't mean they need to be trained for days. It might take 20 to 30 minutes web training so that they understand what is required to information and how successfully they can have matching. Because, putting information about research studies that are going to be useful to the public, it requires a certain level of skills, explaining the study in a language that anyone can understand, also making sure the key eligibility criteria for research recruitment are clearly defined. So all these things that we need to support researchers so that they can put accurate information. So that happens sometime in November and December this year. We believe by sometime February next year, whole process will be, really streamlined. And so once that's done, then we can start thinking of other states joining. And we really want to go national towards sometime August, September next year.
Thank you very much, Professor. That's all we've got time for in the questions. But you really have done a fantastic job of putting this platform together. So on behalf of everyone on the webinar today, I would like to thank you for that initiative and your time this morning, Professor, in participating in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So what's next for our Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative? We are travelling up to Rockhampton with some regional activities. If anyone is in that area or around there, we'd love to invite you to an innovation lunch that we're holding in Rockhampton on the 21st of August. More details can be found at the link on your screen now, or by emailing us at our email address sat@communityresourcing.com.au, and we'll put that on the screen at the end of the presentation. On the 27th of September, we have an upcoming webinar by Deepika Singh from Austria, who's talking about her work on the user perspective and attitudes towards smart home technologies. Further information will be coming out to those registered on the collaborative in advance of the 27th of September. So just another reminder, if you want to get information directly from us, please register at www.satcommunity.com.au. So get in contact. We would love for you to email us at any time, and we look forward to getting your inquiries. I'd like to close today's session by recognising and thanking the team at the Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative, our expert working group, the Queensland Government through the Department of Communities, Disabilities and Seniors for seed funding for our collaborative, and particularly to today's presenter, Professor Jeon. Thank you very much for your time today, and we look forward to you joining us at other webinars.
Thank you.